Two of the world's biggest economies, the United States and China, are struggling.
Tens of thousands of them have begun withholding payments for unfinished projects.
The international community and the financial markets will also feel the pain.
By this time, we all know the Chinese economy is in big trouble. But how much trouble? Is this only a market correction, or is it a recession? Or worse, could a global recession like in 2008 happen again? Let's compare the events of the USA 2008 Great Financial Recession to China 2022 to see if we can predict the future. Stay until the end of the video to learn how you can profit from this. Welcome to the Finance and Luxury Company. Housing bubble. Throughout the last few years, China experienced a real estate bubble as citizens preferred to invest their money in real estate because the market has been growing consistently for decades now. Also, the right to own private property is very recent. It was only after 2007's new property law when people realized comparable property rights of those in the West. This, plus the massive migration from rural China to the cities, plus adding more than 100 million people to the middle class in the past few decades alone, has caused the real estate market to increase double digits year over year. In fact, the country was building 5 times as many houses as America and Europe combined. This has led to over 70% of the country's wealth to be tied up in real estate. The Chinese government, meaning the Chinese Communist Party, has promoted an enormous overexpansion in the real estate market, mainly to prop up its economy by overlending and going into debt. But recently we have started to see cracks in the system. Real estate crash. A Ponzi scam. It's alleged that some of the largest property developers were pre-selling units and then investing that money in other new projects, for the purpose of garnering even more sale deposits, and, by this way, running a Ponzi scheme. The biggest problem from this is that there are millions of houses that are unfinished, and probably will remain so, therefore defrauding millions of people and inciting more protests and civil unrest.
Thousands of ordinary Chinese citizens have made investments in the company and bought its homes. It remains to be seen how many of them will get the homes that they have been promised and in many cases paid up front for in full.
There have been collective demands, boycotts of banks and more. In some cases, the bank froze thousands of accounts to prevent a bank run. This has added panic that things can get worse quickly. The crash. They tried to keep appearances that the GDP was up with overspending in many useless mega-projects, like the famous ghost cities, for example. Huge cities built that no one lives in, roads that lead to nowhere.
I've traveled to many parts of China where you go to a suburb and suddenly you see this forest of apartment blocks. Carry on for 5-10 minutes in your taxi and you're still going through apartment block after apartment block with nobody in them.
Home sales and property investments have had a sharp decline since last year. At the same time, the credit bubble has been expanded to keep the markets afloat, but it's no longer working.
We've had 2 decades of go-go growth, created largely by the booming property sector, and now this really marks the end of that boom.
You can't just grow the economy by borrowing, and borrowing.
Crashing economy. Global contagion. The United States is already in a recession, and according to CNBC, several economies are heading to recession in the next 12 months as central banks move to aggressively tighten monetary policy to fight surging inflation. Global inflation is the highest it's been in decades. And to add fuel to the fire, we have the Russia-Ukraine war, which is causing shocks to chain supplies and a dramatic increase in commodity prices like oil and gas, as production was disrupted. Also, other commodity exports were affected like wheat, precious metals and aluminium. This caused problems in production of semiconductors and chips, increasing the prices of everything that uses chips. leading to even more inflation. Interest rates. China cuts lending rates again only 1 week after surprise cuts in key states. The moves are seen as an attempt to revive credit demand and fire up the economy hurt by extended COVID lockdowns and property debt problems. This reflects how worried the CCP is in maintaining economic stability. Comparison to the 2008 United States Great Financial Crisis. After 2001, the FED started lowering interest rates to boost the economy from more than 6% all the way close to 1% in 2004, which contributed to the real estate bubble. But this alone did not cause the collapse. The main contributor were mortgage-backed securities, credit default swaps, and even synthetic CDOs. Basically, leverage upon leverage on bad underlying assets. These financial securities were filled with bad mortgages. People who shouldn't qualify for a mortgage had several of them. This was in part due to ninja loans.
Well, my firm offers ninja loans. No income, no job. I just leave the income section blank if I want. Corporate doesn't care. These people just want homes, and they go with the flow. Good for you.
Your companies don't verify.
So when banks realized that this was a house of cards and defaults started increasing, they started panic selling these securities, and the collapse began. Real estate started crashing in 2007, and a series of unprecedented events unfolded. Also, the stock market started crashing.
Down 1.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Real estate crashed like never in history and will take years to recover. Banks and other financial entities start collapsing like the famous Lehman Brothers. The Fed reduced interest rates to near 0%, and the government bailed out Wall Street. All this created a global recession in 2008-2009, and it looks eerily similar to the crisis in China today. Now, how can you profit from all this mess? Historically, when a crisis happens, it's the best time to invest in assets. Crises mean opportunity in the economic cycle. If you invest in valuable assets right now, you will likely do very well once the dust settles. You can get 2 free stocks when you click on my Webull link in the description below and deposit $100 to get started. If you don't like the free stocks you get, you can sell them and pull all the money out. It's a win-win. Also, check this video about the biggest companies in the world so you can get some ideas on where to invest. Cheers.